I'm gonna turn myself into the most amazing superhero in the world. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse just came out and it was amazing! Since the movie is a multiversal movie, which means there's a bunch of universes, I figured maybe there's a universe where I can be Spider-Man. I'm Ant217 and today I'm gonna put myself into the Spider-Verse. Let's get started. So to start, I need to get a reference photo. The reference photo will be used as an underpainting and as part of the painting in this process. I'm gonna turn this photo of me into the Spider-Verse. So it's time for a photo shoot.
Oh yeah, work it. Get into that superhero pose. You go girl.
Now that I got my photo with the best superhero pose, it's time to get to work. I start by putting the photo into Photoshop and removing the background. Then I go into the liquify tool and just change some of the proportions on my face just a little bit. I make my eyes a little bit bigger and my nose a little wider just because I feel like in the Spider-Verse style, they have nice blocky noses and I want to be sure to capture that. When I'm finished with the liquify tool in Photoshop, I go into Clip Studio only because I feel more comfortable sketching in Clip Studio. Now I need to start thinking about my superhero costume. And my first thought is I'm a young superhero and I don't really know how to sew or how to get a cool costume, so I'm just gonna use a hoodie, kind of like Miles did in the first movie. As I'm sketching, I realized I still need to do some liquifying, so I used Clip Studio's liquify tool just to do some quick adjustments. I want to make my posture look a little stronger because I have terrible posture, and I want to channel my inner Kim Kardashian and break the internet. You like that? Oh yeah, you like that? Well, you shouldn't, perverts. I look good. I continue to sketch over the photo, making sure I make the eyes even bigger than I did with liquify, and make sure I capture that blocky nose in this style. Remember, it's 3D art, even though in some cases it looks 2D, every character is 3D rendered. I want to keep the spray painted look of the spider logo, kind of like when we were kids and we got the blow pens. You know, those blow pens when you would have to put the marker in your mouth and blow onto the paper, and every time you finished a drawing, you felt super lightheaded and you thought you were gonna die. Well, I wanted that kind of look. I also add a spider onto my hat because, you know, I don't go anywhere without my hat. After I finally have a sketch that I like, remember, I'm not sketching the whole piece because I'm still gonna use the photo as part of the painting. When I have a sketch that I like, I usually move on to the inking, but there is no inks in this style. Sort of. There's inks in the drawing, but there's no outlining. So I use the lasso tool and the other selection tools to select the areas that I need to color, since I can't have the outline keep my colors contained. I realized that the lasso tool and the other selection tools are your best friend when doing lineless art. I select where I want the skin to be, and then I drop the skin color in there in one layer, and then I select where I want the red colors to be and the blue colors to be, and I drop them all into a separate layer. This makes it so that when I'm rendering, I can use a clipping mask to make sure I don't get out of the lines. Do you remember when you were a kid and you were using a crayon and you got out the lines and your whole piece was ruined? Well, with the clipping mask, it makes it that even if you are careless, you don't get out of the lines. It contains your drawing into that clipping mask. And that's why I like to separate everything into different layers. Every color or every section will be a different layer, and I will render them separately. I continue to add all the colors to the piece, and at this point, I'm panicking. I am so nervous. I do not like the way it's looking, but I decide to trust the process. I removed part of the back just so I could get a better posture and a better silhouette, and I changed the angle of the knee a little bit. So for those of you that were enjoying looking at my Kim Kardashian cake, I'm sorry. I got rid of it, changed my posture, changed the pose just a little bit. I'm sorry, but here it is one more time. Perverts. I also decided that I did not like the hand pose that I have in the photo and decided to torture myself and try to draw in a hand. I hate drawing hands and I will always hate drawing hands. I give myself some sneakers because I don't think Spider-Man should be fighting in socks, because if somebody steps on your toe hard enough, man, that fight is over. You ever stub your toe? Put some sneakers on, Spidey. I add a quick background standing on a rooftop like a hero does, when in reality, I'm scared of heights. I begin rendering the face, and I spend a lot of time on the face because I gotta make sure I capture that blocky look to the face. Remember, it's 3D. I wanna make sure that nose looks like it's sitting on top of the planes of my face. I also pay more close attention to the eyelids than I usually do in my style of art, and I do love the way it came out. And also in my style of art, if you know my work, I don't usually draw in pupils, but they have pupils in this style, so I make sure I add those in. I continue rendering the rest of the body, making sure I render with a more natural light. This is not a style that I will be able to use cell shading in, so I gotta make sure all the rendering is more smooth than I would normally do. For that, I like to use the soft airbrush, bring the hardness up to 100, and also use the blend tool to make sure that it doesn't look muddy and messy. I felt like the costume wasn't complete without webbing, so I added some webbing to the gloves and some webbing to my undershirt so you guys don't see my little bit of chest hairs. I add rim lighting because rim lighting is amazing. I move on to the best part of this process, adding in the textures. When you look at Into the Spider-Verse style or Across the Spider-Verse style, you notice that they use halftones and cross-hatching. Now I noticed that the halftones are in the more brightly lit areas and the cross-hatching are more in the shadows. So I begin to add in all those textures. You don't want to be too harsh with it, so I kind of lower the opacity just a little bit because it can overwhelm the piece. So be careful when you're doing this. For me, I added it in a separate layer. In case I didn't like it, I could have just erased it and start over. Also, in case you haven't noticed, my beard is coming in. I used Peter Parker as a reference, and I noticed when they do his facial hair, they did it with just darker cross-hatching across his face. One of the more beautiful things about this style is that they leave some inked lines inside the drawing. So I did some outlining on the nose, line art underneath the eyebrows, and some line art where the wrinkles of the forehead would be if I was doing this. See it? I don't know if you can see it, but it's there. So I add those lines. I give myself some light up shoes and I draw my mask on the floor somewhere like I took it off to take a selfie for Instagram. I feel like I'm done with the character and I'm happy with the character, but I still have to add some Spider-Verse effects. I noticed that in the background they use chromatic aberration. It is the failure of focusing on all colors in one fixed point. So you get a sort of phantom of red, blue, or green kind of next to each other. They do this a lot in the Spider-Verse movies in the background elements. You don't usually see it on the characters that are in the foreground. You see it more in the buildings and any other objects in the background. I add in some webbing, some thwip, and here you have it, Ant 217 in the Spider-Verse. I think that considering that this is the first time I use an underpainting and work with a photo in my illustration, that it came out pretty well. Now, it was a little stressful and there were times that I wanted to give up, but I like the way it came out. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see me do this kind of work again. Let me know which other characters you would like to see in the Spider-Verse, and hit the bell, hit subscribe, and remember, I'm awesome. I think. Thanks for watching. I usually turn away from the camera. Bye.